Yo, I'm Hallow. I've now got over 1,600,000 mastery on Aphelios. I've hit masters with just Aphelios, and today I'm going to be using all of the feedback you guys gave me in my 2025 guide, exactly 365 days ago, to give you the only Aphelios guide you'll ever need. It's been a very long time since I've posted, so if you guys have a minute to spare, I'll quickly go over where I've been. Feel free to skip to the actual guide using the chapters in this video. Over the years, I've been really grateful for all the support you guys have given me, but I've had quite a few rough patches with university recently and figuring out what to post. I'm actually a software engineering student who's graduating at the end of this year, and I've been trying to focus on working towards a job more than creating content or playing games. But over the last year, I found a new passion for something else. Game development! In the last month, I founded my very own game studio, Hallow Studios, and I'm going to be hard at work to develop and release my first ever real game on Steam alongside my partner. I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll be posting gaming content and devlog videos here. But all trailers or sneak peeks directly related to my game will be posted on the Hallow Studios channel. So if you have time, please take a look and subscribe. I'll be giving you guys a lot more info in the coming weeks and posting weekly. Alright, let's get back to the guide. Aphelios is a versatile marksman with the highest skill floor in the game. He's one of the most uniquely designed champions in the game, with even his UI being different. Aphelios doesn't even really have an E ability, as it just tells you what gun is next, and his W ability is just how you swap between your main and offhand weapon. You start level 1 with no abilities, unlocking all of your Q abilities at level 2 and Alt at level 6. Instead of leveling up abilities, you get to choose to increase attack damage, attack speed, or lethality at each level. Aphelios' abilities scale up every 2 levels, starting at level 1 and finishing at level 13, so odd-numbered levels are actually mini power spikes for Aphelios. His passive, the Hitman and the Seer, gives him access to 5 different weapons, each having unique basic attacks and passive effects. Let's go over what each weapon does. Calibrum, the sniper rifle, gives Aphelios 100 bonus attack range, giving you the highest base range of any ADC tied with Caitlyn. If you hit an enemy with Calibrum Q or Ult, it will apply a mark. These marks reveal the enemy for 4.5 seconds and can be consumed by clicking on the enemy within 1800 range. Whatever weapon you are holding when you consume the mark, your offhand weapon is the one that hits them. Calibrum Q is a simple, relatively skinny skill shot with speed slightly slower than Caitlyn Q. Landing it deals base damage, but the majority of the damage comes from consuming the mark itself. Calibrum Ult applies an empowered mark that does even more damage when consumed, multiplying based on how many marks were consumed, basically meaning if you hit multiple enemies with Ult and then consume the mark, it'll do extra damage to that one target. Let's move on to Severum, the Scythe Pistol. This gun heals you based on damage dealt, and the attacks are actually coded as melee, so you can attack through Yasuo Windwall with this. If you are full HP, Severum healing will give you an overhealed shield which stays for up to 30 seconds, so this is a great tool to sustain in lane. Severum Q gives you extra movement speed and automatically performs 6 attacks against the nearest visible enemy, prioritizing champions. The attacks alternate between Severum and your offhand weapon, and you aren't able to use any abilities or auto attacks during this animation, so it could end up costing you damage later in the game. Severum Ult gives flat healing if you hit an enemy, and applies a Severum auto attack to every enemy hit, providing additional damage and healing. Next is Gravitum, the Gravity Cannon. Basic attacks with Gravitum apply a 30% slow to enemies for 2.5 seconds that decays to a 10% slow after 0.7 seconds. Gravitum Q roots all enemies with the Gravitum slow on them for 1 second and deals damage. Gravitum Ult increases the initial slow to 99% and empowers the Q to root targets for 1.35 seconds instead of 1 second when used. So to maximize CC on enemies, you want to ult, wait around 0.7 seconds to make use of 99% slow, and then press Q to root them for an additional 1.35 seconds. This gun has no direct interaction with the other ones unless it's the one being kept in the offhand. Now let's go over Infernum. Every auto attack with Infernum shoots a fire bolt that splits into a cone of 4 weaker bolts behind the target, dealing damage to anything it passes through. If the auto attack is a crit, there will be 6 bolts instead in a cone 50% wider. Infernum Q throws out a wave in a cone shape that deals damage to everything hit, and then after 0.25 seconds, it fires another auto attack at every enemy initially hit by the wave using your offhand weapon. If an enemy has been hit by the initial wave, they can't get out of range or vision. The offhand auto attack will hit them regardless. Infernum ult is the most well-known part of Aphelios' kit because of how quickly it can evaporate a whole team. Similarly to Infernum Q, every enemy hit by the initial ult is hit by an individual attack with circular splash damage, so if enemies are grouped up, they end up taking damage from every single enemy's splash damage circle, which is how you see teams get one-shot. Lastly, we have Crescendum, the Chakram. This weapon is best for close-range battles, as attack speed is largely impacted by how far away you are from the target. The attacks travel like a normal auto, but once it lands on the enemy, it waits for 0.25 seconds before traveling back to you, and you can't do another auto attack until it lands back on you. If Aphelios uses an ability that would need Crescendum to be thrown, instead he throws spectral chakrams at the target that do additional damage. You can stack up to 20 of these spectral chakrams, lasting for 5 seconds unless an ability is used that would give you another spectral chakram. This is your highest DPS weapon on a single opponent, especially when you have several spectral chakrams and are at melee range. Crescendum Q drops a sentry down that takes 0.35 seconds to set up and lasts for 20 seconds. If an enemy walks into range of the sentry, it will reduce its duration to 4 seconds and start attacking the enemy. The sentry grants sight and also attacks the nearest visible enemy in range using our offhand weapon. Crescendum ult deals base damage and gives us an additional 5 spectral chakrams if we hit one enemy, along with an extra spectral chakram for each enemy hit, giving us 10 spectral chakrams if we hit all 5 enemies. For simplicity, I'm going to refer to each of the gun names by their color for the rest of the video. Before I go over the best combinations of main and offhand weapons, I'm briefly going to teach you guys all the useful animation cancels on Aphelios. Okay, so Aphelios' gun swap animation takes exactly 0.25 seconds. In late game fights, 0.25 seconds is a large portion of the time you get to auto enemies. There are 3 primary ways to animation cancel. The first is using your auto attacks. This method is harder the less attack speed you have, but effectively you just need to time your auto attack exactly with your swap. Press W, then auto as quickly as you can after. Another way to avoid the swap animation is to cast ultimate as you're swapping. This is really good for surprising the enemy by showing them your main weapon but using your offhand ult instantly. You can even time it with the animation where you run out of ammo. Ulting at the same time will not only use the new gun you just got in your rotation, but also play both animations at once, so you effectively skip that animation time. For an enemy player that isn't sure what gun is coming next in your rotation, intentionally holding low ammo to surprise them with a new ult is extremely effective. It could literally be any ult if they aren't tracking your rotation. Finally, you can also use Aphelios Q as an auto attack reset. So to max your damage, you need to weave in autos between Qs and ults where possible. Alright, let's go into weapon interactions now. I know my last guide wasn't too clear on why certain combos are better than others and how that links into gun rotations, so I'm going to go more in depth this time. Naturally, with 5 guns each having unique combinations with each other and order mattering, there are 20 distinct gun interactions we could use. After 1.6 million mastery on Aphelios, this is how I rank every gun interaction. Also, you'll notice that many pairings appear twice on this list in different positions. That's intentional as the direction matters. For example, everyone knows the red Q interaction with white offhand is one of the strongest, and that interaction is far stronger than using white Q with red offhand. I want to make sure you guys understand that the strength of a gun combo comes from its best interaction, and using the combo in the wrong direction can severely nerf the strength of the combo. Now let's go to the strongest weapon interactions. White Q with green offhand places a turret that effectively allows you to auto enemies from 1800 range while consuming caliber marks and keeping vision on the enemy. This is most useful for melting objectives or holding space in front of objectives. It's an easy way to stack and keep your spectral chakrams high, and has some of the highest DPS potential in the game. Now we have red-white, don't fight. Red Q with white offhand is infamous because it allows you to stack several spectral chakrams quickly before a fight, greatly increasing your damage output. This combo is only strong in fights where you can get in close or medium range, but it has the highest DPS in the game and is an ideal combo to have ready before most team fights. Blue with red offhand is my favorite interaction. Pressing blue Q on a group of enemies means your offhand weapon applies an auto attack to every enemy you hit with blue Q. With red as your offhand weapon, this means you heal an absurd amount, since each red auto heals you. This is most broken on raptors, minion waves, or a group of enemy champions to lifesteal back to full HP. Overall, this is a great combo for staying alive and still dealing huge damage. It's viable in any team fight. Blue with green offhand is less common than the other three interactions, but has huge damage potential earlier in the game. Weaving in auto attacks with this combo means you can auto attack, then blue Q, then green Q as they are running away, consume that first mark before green Q lands, then consume that second mark from green Q, then green ult, and consume that mark. On any single non-tank target, if you land even half of these skill shots, they will explode late game. This combo takes a bit more skill than the others, but has some of the highest damage potential if played correctly. In extended fights with several tanks and later in the game, it can be a bit weaker than the others, but it can destroy other range comps quickly and do tons of burst damage in the early to mid game. The strong interactions are interactions that are generally powerful but lack the same DPS and utility as the ones above them in certain situations. Blue Q with purple offhand is a powerful combination. It allows you to root an entire team or quickly clear minion waves, but towards later stages of the game, you have the damage to kill over half the team with that combo, and the CC aspect of it is less important. Blue-red takes priority later, as the survivability of red is stronger. Green Q with purple offhand is strong for one specific scenario. Hitting green Q allows you to layer damage very effectively, as you get a free root on the enemy you hit by using purple Q after, and you can layer a green ult on that rooted target. This is strong, but it's entirely single target, and it wouldn't put a dent in a tank. Blue Q with white offhand is also strong, and can be even faster than red-white at stacking spectral chakrams, but it's largely dependent on having raptors or a minion wave near you. Red-white provides more survivability and consistency, and it's not as situational. The good interactions are similar, dealing decent damage at certain points in the game, but not consistently and not late where it's most important. Situational can be pretty bad at certain points of the game, especially if you're behind the expected gold curve. The avoid tier is largely gun interactions that have no synergy between main and offhand, which is why all the interactions with purple as main are there, since purple Q is not dependent on the offhand at all. Now that we understand why certain weapon interactions are strong, we can use that to derive the best weapon pairings regardless of direction, which determines how we can build our rotations. Weapon pairings are directly linked to the strongest gun interactions. We rank them based on their potential ceiling, aka their strongest interaction. Thus, when creating gun rotations, we want to center them around getting the strongest 200 years and strong gun pairings, depending on what team comp we're going up against. Let's reference the 200 years gun pairings and see how many we can get together. Let's just try to make a rotation now. We'll start with green and white next to each other in the order, but we also want red and white, so let's put red before white in the order. Still looks fine. Now we want blue-red, so let's put blue before red in the order. Still fine. Now if we want blue-green, we can put green before blue, right? Nope. We already put green at the end, and we still need to put purple somewhere. This is where we run into an issue. Red, white, green order is undisputed and remains in almost all rotation variants, but we have to make the decision here if we want to keep blue-green or red-blue, as we can't have both of these pairings at once. So let's briefly go over the benefits and advantages of both these pairings again. Red-blue is a more generalist combo with amazing sustain and late game damage. Blue-green is a bursty combo that does best in the early to mid game, but can perform better than red-blue against ranged and squishy comps. For beginners, I would recommend sticking to the red-blue pairing to start with until you're comfortable with it. But for more advanced players, I recommend starting with blue-green and then swapping your gun rotation towards late game to use blue-red, which I'll explain at this timestamp. First, I'll explain how to get and maintain the typical generalist gun rotation that uses blue-red and is especially strong late game. It's important to understand that if you want to maintain the same gun rotation you currently have, you just have to keep getting rid of the oldest gun in your inventory. When you start a game, your guns will be in this order: green, red, purple, blue, white. We are aiming to get to this rotation of green, purple, blue, red, white. This is why we start by getting rid of red, as it immediately moves green, purple next to each other, giving us this order of green, purple, blue, white, and red. Now the only inconsistency here is that red and white need to swap positions. Keep getting rid of the oldest gun in your inventory until you wind up at red-white, and here we get rid of red. Doing this changes the gun order to this, which is the same as green, purple, blue, red, white. Once you've gotten to this rotation, all you need to do is keep getting rid of the oldest gun in your inventory to maintain it. For all beginners, I recommend you try this process for a few games before trying any alternative rotations and the advanced combination of both of them. Alright, now let's go over the blue-green combo popularized by Danine. My bad if I mispronounced their name. This combo is best for early/mid game and against ranged and squishy team comps. Again, we start with this order, green, red, purple, blue, white, but this time we are aiming to get to this rotation, green, blue, purple, red, white. The only difference is that blue and purple are swapped to give us access to blue-green as a pairing. The starting steps are the same as the standard rotation, where we get rid of red first, then get rid of green. However, at this point we change the rotation, getting rid of blue instead of purple, taking us from purple, blue, white, red, green to purple, white, red, green, blue. This has gotten green and blue together, but we still need to move red in between purple and white to get our best pairings of red, white, and green, white. To do this, keep burning the oldest gun as normal, but when you get to red, white, get rid of red first, as you would with your normal rotation, and we're done. Again, just keep getting rid of the oldest gun in your inventory to maintain it. This rotation will feel a bit more difficult to get consistent damage out of it, as blue-green is pretty skill shot based. However, it gives you a lot more burst strength in early game, and I recommend players to try it out after you're comfortable with the standard rotation to get a better understanding of the differences between them. To fully optimize your damage throughout the whole game, you need to combine both gun rotations. In games where the enemy team comp is extremely tanky, it may be better to keep the standard rotation the whole game, and if they're all squishy and ranged, it may be better to keep blue-green. However, most enemy team comps will be nuanced, and that's when it's better to start with blue-green and then swap to blue-red after around 25 minutes or when you end up around 3 items, giving you the advantages of both rotations. To swap from blue-green to the blue-red combo, wait till you have blue-purple in your inventory and drop purple. This takes us from blue, purple, red, white, green to blue, red, white, green, purple. And that's the standard rotation again. I recommend you guys try this only when you have experience with both gun rotations and feel comfortable understanding when to swap them. Otherwise, you might just end up confusing yourself. Our level up options are Q for attack damage, W for attack speed, and E for lethality. Aphelios as a champion synergizes best with attack damage first, then lethality, and then attack speed. This is because all of Aphelios' Q abilities scale over 100% with attack damage, except for Gravity and Q. Lethality is strong in Aphelios as well because Aphelios' playstyle is more aligned with the AD caster these days. However, there is one key exception in this skill level up order. Tons of players still start by leveling up attack damage, but at the start of the game when you're level 1, Aphelios has 0 abilities available, so attack damage scaling has far less impact than normal. Leveling up attack speed at level 1 gives you far more DPS and wave clear, so every game you should level up attack speed level 1, then max attack damage, lethality, and finally attack speed. Summoner spells on Aphelios are quite varied. Of course, Flash is a necessity, but the secondary spell changes a lot for me. The main goal for Aphelios players in lane is to survive and stay even in gold to become a hyper carry late game, and our secondary summoner spell should reflect that. The best all-around safe option for keeping you alive out of lane is Barrier, although it falls off a bit as the overheal shield you'll have late game outweighs it by a lot. Typically, if I'm in a lane where I know I can survive and scale, I really like taking Ghost, as it helps alleviate Aphelios' biggest weakness being mobility. Against teams with undodgeable CC or a lot of CC, you definitely need to take Cleanse. Against all-in bot lanes like Tristana or Samira, I like to take Exhaust over Barrier. To summarize, aim to take Barrier most games. If you're confident you can survive lane and want more late game mobility, take Ghost. But when faced with a lot of CC, go Cleanse, and if there's a lot of all-in champs, go Exhaust. Your primary rune tree on Aphelios will always be Precision. PTA is your default. It synergizes extremely well with Aphelios' abilities and is great for helping chunk enemy laners with short trades revolving around your Q cooldowns. Around 60% of your games should be using PTA. However, you can also use Conqueror or Fleet Footwork. In games where the enemy team has several strong tanks and you're confident fights will be extended, Conqueror can be strong, although I find these games are pretty rare. Fleet Footwork is ideal when you're facing a heavy poke lane and your main goal is to survive the lane, for example versus a Caitlyn Lux. Lethal Tempo used to be semi-viable and seems like it would work with Aphelios' identity as a champ, but most of Aphelios' Qs don't actually stack Lethal Tempo for some reason, so it ends up being much weaker than the other 3. For your minor precision runes, you should always take Triumph and Cut Down. Typically I go Legend Bloodline, however Alacrity is just as good, and it's honestly a personal choice up to you. For our secondary tree we go Inspiration. Although Sorcery used to be our best secondary, in the current meta I feel that, especially for late game Aphelios, we don't really need the damage provided by Sorcery, and that the survivability and economy provided by Inspiration is much stronger. Always go Cashback to help push us to our item power spikes faster, and then depending on the game you can pick between Triple Tonic and Cosmic Insight. I personally take Cosmic Insight most games because I value having my flash up as much as possible, but Triple Tonic is objectively stronger on Aphelios for most games, unless you're against a team that will 100% all-in you and keep forcing your flash. With the shards, take double adaptive force and the 65 base HP. Since we are leveling attack speed level 1, we don't need to level up attack speed in the shards, and AD is more valuable over the whole game. However, we are also no longer building attack speed boots, so if you really want the attack speed, it's totally fine to take one attack speed shard. Now let's go over our build. To start, we default to Doran's bow, but if the enemy has a ton of early game pressure and might try to dive you, we go Doran's blade for the extra HP. For boots, we default to Gluttonous Greaves. Berserker's Greaves got heavily nerfed, and it's just not worth building right now. In some games, if you think you'll be kiting a lot or need to get on top of high range champs, Swifties can be a valid purchase as well. Now for the first item, we have 3 options: Hex Optics, Stormrazor, and Collector. Stormrazor is by far the strongest on Aphelios, but its build path is difficult, and if you don't have 1300 gold on your back, it can feel really bad in lane trying to force the build path. So in the case we don't have much money, we can choose between Hex Optics and Collector. Hex Optics has been mathematically proven multiple times to outperform Collector at effectively every point in the game, and has a cheap build path, so typically we build Hex Optics if we can't afford Stormrazor. Collector is extremely situational and rare in my opinion, and should always be avoided unless the enemy is literally entirely squishy. For a second item, always try to go Infinity Edge. If you're struggling and don't have much gold, it is viable to go Phantom Dancer here for a quicker item spike. If we're following the main build, for third and fourth item, we now build Phantom Dancer and an armor penetration item, depending on the enemy team comp. For the armor pen item, we default to LDR. Only go Mortal Reminder if literally the entire enemy team has healing. We usually have enough damage with LDR to offset the benefits of anti-heal as Aphelios. For 5th and 6th item, I typically start with Bloodthirster, but if the enemy has point and click CC and can effectively guarantee kill you, going Guardian Angel first is also a good choice. Bloodthirster and Guardian Angel are the defaults, but Mercurial Scimitar is also a good situational item if you need to cleanse CC, and Maul is good for keeping you alive versus AP burst team comps. This is the standard build path you'll go every game, however there is some wiggle room. Some players prefer Runons over Phantom Dancer, and it is still a strong item that synergizes extremely well with many of Aphelios' weapons, so if you do prefer Runons, you can build it in place of Phantom Dancer. Also, in games where you are really struggling to stay alive, Shield Bow is a decent item that can help you survive, although both of these items should be built very rarely in my opinion. I've updated my old ADC matchup tier list to be more accurate to my experience this season. Aphelios gets countered by champs that either outrange him, can block or avoid his auto attacks and burst him down quickly, and champs that can really harass him in lane. Use this tier list to help you decide if Aphelios is worth picking. All these matchups are still winnable, but this tier list is more about the individual lane matchup or the 1v1 and 2v2 outside of lane. Aphelios is a champion that has more than enough damage for the lane. The best synergies with Aphelios are champions that can sustain or peel him through the lane phase, in essence, defensive champions. If you look at the D tier, almost every champion there is offensive and damage focused for good reason. Aphelios' biggest weaknesses are early game and mobility. Someone like Thresh is an amazing support with Aphelios because of the disengage and lantern, giving you much more freedom to play aggressive and survive. So, now that we know what supports work well with Aphelios and what ADC matchups are playable, let's summarize when is a good time to pick Aphelios. Aphelios is best picked against low presence supports like Milio or Sona, or engage champs that have relatively short engage ranges like Alistar. These matchups give Aphelios a lot more breathing room to land poke and not be entirely pushed off the wave. Similarly, Aphelios is a great pick versus low range ADCs like Vayne or Zeri, where we can actually be the ones bullying them in lane. And of course, if your support is an enchanter or peeler that can keep you safe, it's a much better time for you to pick Aphelios. So when should we avoid picking Aphelios? I would say against hook supports with a long engage range like Blitzcrank or Nautilus, with mobility being our biggest weakness, we can be one-shot by any landed hook at almost any stage of the game. Also, when the enemy is picked mage supports that heavily outrange us like Xerath or Karma, as we have no mobility to get into range to really damage them. And lastly, against Twitch. This matchup is honestly disgusting, and winning is hugely up to your team playing around you. Combos and team comps that prey on your immobility are extremely difficult for us, like a Camille and Misfortune combination for example. There's genuinely no counterplay for us and you'll have to position yourself 3 kilometers away from fights. Overall, Aphelios is a good blind pick. However, I'd say around a fifth of your games will be extremely difficult if you consistently blind pick him, so that's definitely something to be aware of. I would highly recommend finding a duo as your support over just blind picking all the time, but it is viable and I have climbed far blind picking Aphelios before. Laning is definitely one of the hardest parts when playing Aphelios, so let's start with level 1. This is heavily matchup dependent, but I'll go over what the ideal scenario is and what to do if you can't get there. Ideally, level 1, you'd be trying to push the wave as much as possible to get to level 2 before the enemy ADC, whether that's zoning them away from minions if they're short range, or just pushing the wave first. That's the ideal way to start lane. Level 2 Aphelios has one of the strongest burst combos in the bot lane, so if you can start the snowball, you can land big poke on the enemy and maintain a steady advantage by poking them under tower as they catch the wave, or by helping your jungler get river priority. This is what would be expected in a matchup versus Zeri or Kai'Sa for example, if you have good support synergy. However, Aphelios level 1 has no abilities and is quite weak if the enemy can get in range to hit you, so in a lot of scenarios we won't be able to get push. Avoid all-ins at level 1 unless the enemy massively misplays, and just try to keep your HP as high as possible while last hitting. It is fine to not have prio in lane for the first few minutes. It's very important to be able to identify what matchups are losing early and to play accordingly as soon as the lane starts. For example, if you have a melee support and the enemy has 2 ranged champions, naturally you will get poked off the wave if you try to push it. Understanding things like this and avoiding hitting the wave will prevent you from losing many minions, and you'll likely be able to get away with just last hitting them under tower. In early game, especially when you're being pushed under tower, it's more important to keep your HP and XP high than to last hit every minion, as you still have a lot of all-in potential against most of these high range lanes that keep you under tower. You need to stay healthy enough for an all-in or for a gank to come through, so prioritize your health against these double range sort of poke lanes. In lane phase, you need to remember that you are the weakest level 1 ADC in an all-in. Calibrum range is your biggest advantage, and it's great for poke. Don't waste mana with abilities unless you're sure you can land them or if it's part of a combo. Typically you will have CC or an engage you can time it with rather than just dry casting your abilities on cooldown. You'll run out of mana pretty fast. Severum is great for sustain. Make sure you always use it if you're hitting the wave in lane, and ping your support or jungler right before or when you have Gravitum to set up the route. A lot of lower elo players won't know that you have CC unless you ping them to come. The last hit combo on screen here is a great way to catch enemies off guard with burst and a root at the end of it. If you want more detail on last hit combos, check out my 2025 guide. The mid game is where you've got an item or two, around 15 to 25 minutes. At this point, you should start feeling pretty strong. Your gun rotation should be established and being maintained, and this is also the window where the blue-green rotation is strongest. You want to be holding this combo for teamfights where possible, or using the gun pairing just before it in case you run out of ammo during a fight. Gameplay for an Aphelios in the mid game isn't too different from most ADCs. You don't have to commit to fights because you have the luxury of being a hyperscaler, but you are more than strong enough to win fights with good setup. Trying to match your flash timer and gun pairings with objectives is extremely important at this stage of the game, and if you don't have these ready for fights, it is completely valid to ping your teammates off a big team fight. Stay with your support or team as much as possible and focus on shoving waves, being ready for objectives, and getting more items online.
20 minutes later.
Now you're the scariest champion on the Rift. You have an insane amount of damage, but the enemy probably will as well. Positioning is everything. With no mobility, you need to stay behind your team and wait for ults and engages before walking up into range. This is also where blue-red becomes stronger than blue-green, so you should look to swap back to blue-red for optimal gameplay. You can one-shot the whole team with Infernum ult, and using vision or standing off to the side and looking for angles is valuable. Just make sure you don't wait too long for a perfect angle, or your whole team might just die first. Focus on kiting and having them come into you. Aphelios is great at kiting back with Infernum and blowing up the whole enemy team as they walk into the splash damage, or setting up sentries that can one-shot enemy laners when hidden out of vision, etc. You do best when they come into you, so it's even more important to get early vision on objectives and to hold it. For objectives like Baron, look for red-white into white-green to melt it and stack your chakrams. For general fights, try to hold blue-red as much as possible, as the survivability in AoE is all you need for most fights at this stage. Also, your flash is everything. If you're missing it, avoid fights and play around yourself. In the late game, you are the carry, and you can win games on your own if you play correctly. Alright, now let's go into some advanced mechanics. You can flash in the middle of green Q to redirect where it fires from. Green Q will always be aimed at where your cursor was when you pressed it, but flashing sideways redirects the start of the bolt, allowing you to dodge skill shots, go around minions or enemy champions blocking it, and catch enemies off guard. You can actually consume 2 marks with 1 green ult. When you hit multiple enemies with green ult, it takes a different amount of time for them to be marked based on how far they are from the place they were hit. This means that if I hit one champion standing still and another is running away from the ult, the mark on the standing still champion will appear before the running away champion's mark. When you consume a mark, it consumes all other active marks. However, the projectile traveling towards the running champion won't be considered active yet. So if you consume that first mark before the second mark lands on the other champion, you can auto them as well after. You actually lose all of your spectral chakram stacks if you auto a Winwall or auto Gwen when she puts her W up, and similar interactions. so sometimes it's good to hold back and avoid autoing these types of champions until you've seen these abilities go on cooldown. Purple Q actually has a lot of nuance to it. You can bypass spell shields by autoing an enemy that already has the Gravitum Slow effect on them and pressing Q while that auto is still mid-air. This works on Silver Spell Shield, Edge of Night, Mundo Spell Shield, and more. Also, you can't root enemies that can't be slowed, such as a Master Yi that's ulting. When you're soloing Baron with red-white then green-white, you should always have the Sentry Turret tank the Baron. The target Baron is attacking does 50% less damage to Baron, so although it seems like you'd keep the Sentry alive longer if you tank it, in terms of DPS to Baron, you'd actually be nerfing yourself. Sentry turrets you spawn with white Q can actually be displaced. You can use them to block hooks from all major hook champions, but not things like Var's arrow, as all skill shots that don't go through minions will be blocked by the turret. However, all of this only works if the turret is activated, as it's untargetable until it's aggroed by an enemy. Also, you can even place them on the edges of blast cone radiuses and then send over a sentry turret missile to completely surprise the enemy while keeping yourself safe. Kha'Zix does a ton of damage to us when we're isolated, but placing the white sentry actually negates this isolation buff, so if you think Kha'Zix is on you, place a sentry down. A last hit combo refers to combos that use more than just 2 weapons. It's where one weapon has 10 ammo or less, and we include the active ability of the new weapon as a part of the combo. It's very important for drawn out fights, and it's really how you go above and beyond as an Aphelios player. I went pretty in depth on this in my 2025 guide, and honestly I don't think I would change much in this updated guide, so after finishing this video, I'd recommend new players to go and watch that section of my 2025 guide for more info on specific last hit combos. The final mechanic is a bit of a fundamental one, but I'd like to show you guys some examples to make it clearer. It's the principle that you need to weave in auto attacks between and before you use abilities. We know that most of our abilities act as auto attack resets, so if you want to use red Q in a fight, you should auto attack right before you press Q to max damage. And in between popular combos such as Infernum Alt Flash Q WQ, the damage can feel underwhelming if you're not weaving in autos like this. Here we go, Infernum Alt Flash Auto Q W Q W Auto. In some scenarios, if you're strong enough, you may not need the autos and it can be faster to just use abilities, but generally speaking, and especially in mid-game, this is a very important concept to master. I'm sure a lot of the people watching this video will be very new to the champion, so I just wanted to direct you guys to some of my favorite Aphelios content creators that also inspired a lot of my points in this video, since I try to keep up with all of their guides and content. If you guys are interested in learning more about Aphelios or having more consistent videos to watch, these are the guys to check out. First of all, we got Danin. I'm still sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but he really kind of pioneered the blue-green rotation and made it mainstream. I really love his editing style. I take a lot of notes. And then we also have Alexis. I love Alexis. I love his videos, really in-depth about Aphelios specifically. And there's so much to go through if you guys want to. There's also Vapora Dark. He has good videos as well, but I really like his Mobifier guide that he made on Aphelios. It's called the Book of Aphelios. I actually learned a couple of things while reading it, and yeah, it's very comprehensive. And finally, Remax. This is a nostalgic one for me, even though he doesn't post anymore. To be honest, a lot of it's outdated now, but he was my biggest inspiration in terms of me making my own content. I actually watched a movie with him on his birthday in his Discord server. But I was just muted, so he probably didn't even, he doesn't know who I am. But yeah, man, what a great guy. I miss that guy. Wish he would post. So yeah, thanks so much for making it to the end of this super long video, guys. I think I will be posting updates to the build, matchups, runes, parts of the guides yearly or every season. But this one will serve as the main kind of in-depth beginner to advanced guide that encompasses all things Aphelios. So I won't keep posting 1-hour videos in the future. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to my game studio. I've got 1 subscriber and it's me. And yeah, let me know what kind of videos you guys would like. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, everything please. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.